To jump into one of my all-time favorite plays, the Scottish play. We got Macbeth here. If you for you theater folks, if you know why it's called the Scottish play, here's the good old Wikipedia entry. According to theatrical superstition called the Scottish curse, speaking the name Macbeth inside a theater other than is called for in the script while rehearsing or performing will cause disaster. On top of the aforementioned alternative titles, some people also refer to the classical tragedy as Mackers for this reasons. So there's a lot of superstition. It's funny with the weird sisters and the witches at the beginning. A lot of superstition around Macbeth. Macbeth continues some of our class themes of melancholy. Indecision, not so much because Macbeth is given the choice of power, and I love this idea. Uh, Ultimate power, greed, corruption, right? Blind ambition, how power corrupts. We see that with Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, leading to bloody consequences. Revenge and guilt too. We see, Macbeth has Banquo slain, and all these things just to hold on to power. But we get some of Shakespeare's most beautiful language in Macbeth in this brilliant play. Let's listen to Karen Peake's intro here, and then I'm going to read Act 1 overview, and then we'll just look at Act 1, Scene 1, which is really, really short.
An Introduction to Shakespeare's Macbeth, written by Barbara Mowat and Paul Werstein, editors of the Folger Shakespeare editions. In 1603, James VI of Scotland ascended the English throne, becoming James I of England. London was alive with an interest in all things Scottish, and Shakespeare turned to Scottish history for material. He found a spectacle of violence and stories of traitors advised by witches and wizards, echoing James's belief in a connection between treason and witchcraft. In depicting a man who murders to become king, Macbeth teases us with huge questions. Is Macbeth tempted by fate, or by his or his wife's ambition? Why does their success turn to ashes? Like other plays, Macbeth speaks to each generation. Its story was once seen as that of a hero who commits an evil act and pays an enormous price. Recently, it has been applied to nations that overreach themselves, and to modern alienation. The line is blurred between Macbeth's evil and his opponent's good, and there are new attitudes toward both witchcraft and gender.
And we'll look at some of the way we traditionally Lady Macbeth is seen as this complete villainous character. Although we'll look at her in a new feminist light as well. Think of Lady Macbeth, right? She's what are her opportunities for power? She's subsequently relegated to second behind the man behind Macbeth, right? So we have those motives as well. Let's jump into. Let's just read the first scene. Is really, really short. And then we have the synopsis there. Primarily in Scotland. So we got the Scottish play. Mixes witchcraft, prophecy, and murder. Three weird sisters, the witches, appear to Macbeth and his comrade Banquo after a battle and prophecy that Macbeth will be king and that the descendants of Banquo will also reign. And this is Macbeth always refers back to this prophecy here. When Macbeth arrives at his castle, he and Lady Macbeth plot to assassinate King Duncan, soon to be their guests, so that Macbeth can become king. We see how the murders haunt, and we see guilt with these things, this murder though as well, with the blood on their hands. After Macbeth murders Duncan, the king's two sons flee and Macbeth is crowned. Fearing that Banquo's descendants will, according to the Weird Sisters' predictions, take over the kingdom, Macbeth has Banquo killed. At a royal banquet that evening, Macbeth sees Banquo's ghost appear covered in blood. Macbeth determines to consult the Weird Sisters again. They comfort him with ambiguous promises. Macduff rides to England to join Duncan's son. Malcolm. Macbeth has Macduff's wife and children murdered. Malcolm and Macduff lead an army against Macbeth as Lady Macbeth goes mad and commits suicide. Macbeth confronts Malcolm's army, trusting in the Weird Sisters' comforting promises. He learns that the promises are tricks, but continues to fight. Macduff kills Macbeth, and Malcolm becomes Scotland's king. Here is Act 1, Scene 1. Um, so, three witches plan to meet Macbeth. The overview of Act 1 completely. Three witches meet Macbeth and Banquo. Again, I'm repeating some of the stuff. On the heath as the men return from battle. They predict that Macbeth will be named Thane of Cawdor and King of Scotland, and that Banquo will be the father of kings. The witches vanish. Ross enters to greet Macbeth with the title of Cawdor, the traitor whom King Duncan has determined must be executed, and whose title and lands will be given to Macbeth. This immediate, earnest of success, commencing in a truth, that's the quote from Shakespeare, causes Macbeth to consider the extent of his ambition, and Banquo to warn that predictions are often harmful as well as beneficial. Announcing that his eldest son, Malcolm, is to be his heir, Duncan states his intention to visit Macbeth's castle, Glamis. When Lady Macbeth reads the letter Macbeth has sent ahead, she determines her husband must take advantage of the opportunity. Duncan's forthcoming visit offers as a way of fulfilling the prophecy. However, she fears that though Macbeth is not without ambition, he is too full of the milk of human kindness to catch the nearest way. Macbeth is not as determined as his lady about the need for murder. He considers reasons he should defend rather than threaten the life of his king. Lady Macbeth remains adamant and pressures him with attacks on his manhood as well as reminders of their feelings for each other. She convinces Macbeth to proceed by presenting her plan to drag Duncan's guards and leave evidence that will implicate them in the crime. So a lot is going down in Act 1. And this is a play, a really swift play that moves, right? We have a lot of action here. I always think of these Macbeth questions. I love these Macbeth questions. We all like to think of ourselves, as much different from Hamlet and Macbeth, or maybe not. What would we do if we stumbled upon the Weird Sisters, the three witches, wandering up the moor, and they promised us power? And what would we do, right? Here's Act 1, Scene 1, really, really short. Thunder and lightning enter the Weird Sisters here, right, as they're known. The witches. First witch. When shall we three meet again? In thunder, lightning, or in rain? When the hurly-burly's done, when the battle's lost and won, that will be the air, the set of sun. Where the place? Upon the heath, there to meet with Macbeth. I come, Grey Malkin. Grey Malkin is the witch's attendant spirit, a grey cat. Grey Malkin, the grey cat. Paddock calls. Anon. Fair is foul, and foul is fair. Hover through the fog and filthy air. And this raises, the witches have these wonderful, beautifully immortal lines. Another theme running through Macbeth, other than power, greed, ultimate corruption. Things are not as they seem on many different levels. Macbeth gets these prophecies and he reads them one way. All is fair. Fair is foul and foul is fair. There's the opposite. Things are not as they seem in the world of Macbeth.